Wherever you find people, at home or at the office, you'll find conflict. People disagree about things. It's a fact of life, and it doesn't have to be a problem. In a workplace, conflicts that are handled appropriately can be a source of innovation and positive change, both for employees and the companies they work for. But when conflicts go unresolved, they can raise stress levels, interfere with business, and even lead to physical violence. To prevent this, human resource professionals have developed an effective conflict resolution process that employees can use to help find lasting solutions to disagreements on the job.
This thing isn't working again.
In this program, we'll discuss different types of conflict you may encounter in the office, the practices you should follow to resolve conflict, and what to do if conflict threatens to get out of control.
Out of the way.
Cheryl, where are the Sharpies? Are you kidding me,
When
Cheryl?
conflicts that arise in a workplace are not resolved, they can raise employees' stress levels, damage their morale, and even lead to physical violence. Smoldering disagreements can also reduce worker productivity and hurt a company's reputation. So it's important to be able to recognize and deal with workplace conflicts promptly and effectively. To do that, it helps to understand a few things about these conflicts themselves. For example, because workplace conflict occurs where we make our living, it can seem like a threat to our livelihood. This can make it more difficult to see an issue from the other person's point of view. And conflict doesn't only affect the people who are involved directly in the dispute. It can create a tense and even hostile work environment for everyone around them. To prevent this, it's important to determine what caused the conflict in the first place. For example, employees sometimes disagree about what goals they should be working towards. But it's very unusual for goals to be really mutually exclusive. In these cases, looking at the bigger picture can help us see how multiple objectives fit together in an overall plan. But even when we agree about the goals we're pursuing, we can still disagree on how to accomplish them. These are called procedural conflicts, and they can often be resolved by combining different strategies into a plan, compromising as to how we will proceed. Other types of conflicts can arise from simple misunderstandings, lack of communication, or poor data. In these situations, it's important for coworkers to establish common ground by ensuring that everyone has the most reliable, accurate, and up-to-date information possible. However, even then, we can still disagree about what those facts mean. Fortunately, these types of differences of opinion can often be resolved through friendly discussion. This approach also helps to establish a better understanding of the issues for the whole team. But it's important to remember that conflict is like a forest fire. If you don't extinguish it completely, one spark can make it flare up again. So any solution to a conflict has to work for everyone who is involved. Because if one party is dissatisfied, the issue really hasn't been resolved. Workplace conflict can be a pain in the neck. No employee is going to welcome the distraction that a disagreement causes during a busy workday. Resolving the issue makes demands on our time and energy as well. So while it may be natural to wish for quick and easy solutions to on-the-job disputes, this can often lead to some bad habits that actually make conflict resolution more difficult. Competing, yielding, and avoiding are three common responses to conflict that not only fail to resolve a problem, but can actually make it worse. For example, in competing, a person tries to shut down the conflict by fighting for what they want and overcoming the opposition by force.
I did all the groundwork for that. I got all the contacts.
I appreciate that.
Competing is an ineffective technique for resolving conflicts for two reasons. First, it tends to escalate the disagreement. Second, while one person may win, someone else ends up losing. While the winner may be happy with the result, the loser remains dissatisfied. And since everyone's needs and concerns have not been addressed, the conflict is bound to crop up again later. Another ineffective approach to conflict resolution is called yielding. This is when one party to the conflict tries to make peace by surrendering to the other. They might say something like, "I don't have time to argue about this, have it your way."
I don't have time to argue about this. I'll get to it.
But yielding doesn't create a lasting resolution because someone still has to lose. Even an employee who surrenders voluntarily may come to regret the decision. Then their bitterness and anger can cause the conflict to flare up again. The third bad habit that people develop in dealing with conflicts is avoiding. This is when an employee basically ignores a conflict, looking the other way and pretending it isn't happening. While this may reduce the stress temporarily, it's no substitute for a real solution, because conflicts do not go away by themselves.
I'm sorry. I can't believe you're doing this. You have to put the file in here.
Instead of resolving a conflict, competing, yielding, and avoiding just delay when a real effort must be made to solve the problem. And it's important to remember that typically the longer the resolution is delayed, the more a conflict escalates, increasing both the bitterness of the dispute and the possibility that it will lead to violence. The effective process of conflict resolution is based on a set of problem-solving skills that can help you to diffuse disputes and find a permanent solution. It's critical for you to understand and use these skills because a workplace conflict that isn't dealt with won't just fade away, it gets worse. And as we've discussed, unresolved conflicts can interfere with business, damage employee morale, and drive down productivity. The longer these situations go unresolved, the more likely they are to lead to workplace violence as well. It's also important to understand that no resolution is possible when the parties to a conflict stay in their own corners. We all have to work together to solve the problem. This is called collaboration.
Remember, I gave it to you to make sure that that's the way.
Collaboration requires us to let go of the "I'm right, you're wrong" mindset, as well as any anger the disagreement has caused. Letting emotions drive your behavior will only make it harder to reach out to others and find a solution. It helps to take a step back and look at the big picture. Remember that you're all professionals working towards overcoming a challenge for the good of the company and for yourselves. All of the people who are involved need to communicate, to explain their positions and find some common ground. While you should be assertive about your own needs and concerns, you also need to consider those of the other people who are involved. So be prepared to compromise. Weigh your priorities and decide where you can give a little to get a little. Negotiating these trade-offs can be the most time and effort-intensive part of the conflict resolution process, but it's also key to finding a successful solution. Sometimes conflict can get very intense very quickly. In these cases, it can outrun people's ability to respond to it peacefully. Tempers fray, emotions run high, and suddenly a violent clash seems imminent. These situations are called confrontations, and they require special handling. If a conflict causes you to become involved in a confrontation with a coworker, there are a number of things you can do to help diffuse the situation. First, remain calm. Breathe normally. Becoming excited or emotional will only escalate things. Do not raise your voice or shout.
There, I don't have to do anything to tell me to calm down.
Even if the other person is getting loud, you should continue to speak quietly. Explain to them that you want to understand their point of view, and ask them to explain their concerns. Then, let them speak. Don't interrupt. Don't disagree or be judgmental. When they're finished, show that you understand by restating their position in your own words. Phrase what you say using the words I and we instead of you whenever possible. Statements using you can sound like accusations and may put the other person on the defensive. Don't fidget or make fists. Don't cross your arms. Keep them low in a non-threatening position. Try to stay at least 5 feet away from the other person. Avoid physical contact. If the other person pushes or tries to hit you, just walk away. Pushing or hitting them back will only intensify the confrontation. If the other person grabs you, try to break free and get away. If you can't get away, call for help. There's usually someone nearby who can assist you. Do not allow yourself to get drawn into a fight. You could be seriously injured, face disciplinary action from your employer, or be arrested for assault. You can even be sued by the person you were fighting with, no matter who started it.
Amy, why do you keep putting the boxes on you first? How many times? Do you know what today's date is? Do you have
I'm
any
gonna
idea?
take all of your slack. You're not going to sit up there with your feet up there playing. I can't.
As we've seen, conflict in the workplace can be bad for employees and the companies they work for. But there are things you can do to help resolve disputes for everyone's benefit. Let's review. Handled correctly, workplace conflict can be a source of innovation and positive change. But conflict that goes unresolved can be bad for people and for business. Remember that quick and easy responses to conflict do not address the roots of a dispute. Taking the time to collaborate, communicate, and compromise with your coworkers is the best way to resolve conflict. If a confrontation occurs, you can diffuse the situation and help to prevent violence by staying calm and avoid being drawn into a fight. Now that you understand the problems that conflict can create and know how to find lasting solutions to any disputes that do arise, you can help make your office more pleasant and productive for everyone, every day.